Good morning, everyone. Because of your presence here today, we were able to successfully perform the December monthly service joyously and with high spirits, bringing joy to God the Parent and Oya-sama. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Bishop Fukaya for allowing me this opportunity to speak today. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Robert Shimizu, also known as Bobby, head minister of the Terminal Church here in Los Angeles. I am affiliated with the Honjima Grand Church. Now, if I may ask for your kind attention, I would greatly appreciate it. The title of my sermon is My 3-Year Experience as a Member of the Tendikyo Church Headquarters, Keidai Gakari. In 1993, after completing the 3-month spiritual development course and the head minister's qualification course 1 in Ojiba, I was accepted to join the Tendikyo Church Headquarters, Keidai Gakari Precinct Security Section in October of 1993 and served for a term of 3 years. How I became interested in becoming a member of Keidai, being one of the most difficult, both mentally and physically exhausting Hinoshin sections within the Tendikyo Church organizations, was my experience with the Oyasato seminar back in 1987, where we worked alongside with the Keidai members for a period of 1 week. With this experience, I became interested and felt that one day it would be my calling. It all started with a 4-week training session to learn the methods and procedures. It was run like a military-like organization. We had gone through extensive training, security training, regarding our authority and the regulations or laws within the interior and exterior of the main sanctuary, the Founders Hall and the Memorial Hall, as well as the surrounding areas around church headquarters. We were instructed to observe the followers and to look out for anyone suspicious. We were also instructed that photograph within the interior of church headquarters was strictly prohibited. We were to confiscate the camera and take claim of the film. And mind you, this was back in the 90s. No smartphones back then. Eating and drinking was also prohibited within the grounds, but our main objective was to protect the Kanrodai. There was a total of 204 active Keidai Gakari members and 9 members in administration. Keidai was composed into 3 separate groups, or kumis. Each kumi, ni kumi, and san kumi, which had a total of 69 members per kumi, or group. Keidai section had a total of 4 stations that surrounded church headquarters, which includes Honsho, the main office, Nakashisho, the inner courtyard station, Nishi Shisho, the west station, and Kita Shisho, the north station. The Honsho station was responsible for providing security for the south, east, and west worship halls, the basement, as well as patrolling the corridors and restrooms and the surrounding areas outside of church headquarters. The Nakashisho station was responsible for providing security for the north worship hall and to the entrance of the Shimbashida's residence. The Nishi Shisho station was responsible for providing security for the memorial hall and patrolling the corridors and restrooms. The Kita Shisho station was responsible for providing security for the rear exterior of the foundress's residence and garden. I was assigned to the Honsho station. Each kumi, Furuhashi-han, Team 2, Nippon. Furuhashi Hancho was our team leader, and I guess the best way to describe his classification was that he was our sergeant. He was responsible for 23 members. I was a handicap within that group since he did not speak any English, and my Japanese was very limited just to get by. There is also another team of 23 members in our station, and we would alternate shifts for the next 24 hours. So yes, we worked together for 24 hours shift, where we would have our meals, bathe, sleep at our station, and sleep was very limited. On a normal day, our basic job description within the Honsho office entails one Keidai guard standing inside the worship halls, which is referred to as Dennai Shomen at the rear entrance, and two more guards standing at the front of the worship hall on the opposite sides of each other next to the kekkai, or partition bar, which is the border that separates the sanctuary, Kanrodai, and the worship hall, where the general population of followers come to pray. This task in Keidai language is referred to as Rissho. There are guards standing outdoors of the worship halls, referred to as Dengai, and inside the basement, referred to as Kaika, which was also a way of means to enter the worship halls. The outdoor and basement guards are supposed to greet followers with a traditional Japanese bow, along with a respectful, welcoming greeting. They also wipe down the followers' shoes with a clean rag and neatly place their shoes down next to the steps. When the followers are ready to leave, they will offer them a shoehorn for their convenience, and again, give them a respectful bow and a thank you. One guard will be assigned to a 1 hour-long patrol on the outskirts of church headquarters. Now, I will share with you some of my personal experiences. On one cool evening, I was assigned to stand guard inside the South Worship Hall called Minami Raihaijo Shomen at the rear main entrance. Right after the evening service had concluded, a family of around 12 to 15 members had entered the worship hall carrying a body roughly around 7 o'clock p.m. At that time, I thought the family just brought in a person with a health condition and wanted to pray for his or her recovery. Also, keep in mind that the family had to first pass through the Keidai members that were assigned outdoors. So I didn't think anything unusual at the time. The family sat all the way up front behind the partition bar, the kekkai, with the person that had the health condition laying down on the tatami mat, surrounded by the family members. Now, I assumed that this was a family. The family started to perform the seated service, followed by administering the sasuke to the person laying down on the tatami mat. They continued persistently, repeating this process over and over. When I went back to the Keidai Honsho station to take my break, I had reported this to Furuhashi Hancho. He directed me to keep watch and to inform the other Keidai guards that were assigned to the South Worship Hall about the family. In Japanese, he said to me, "Chui shinasai." As the hours had passed on, the family was still there performing the seated service and administering the sasuke relentlessly. I had the last shift from 11:30 p.m. to 12 o'clock a.m. before we had to switch teams. Suddenly, Furuhashi Hancho stepped into the worship hall and stood next to me. He was silent for about a few minutes, and he was observing the family. He then directed me to approach the family up close and take a good look. So I proceeded forward and made my way up to the family and stood right behind them. They were unaware of my presence as they were performing the seated service. I took a close look at the person laying down on the tatami mat, laying face up, and noticed that the face was covered with a piece of white cloth and the body was wrapped in a blanket. At that time, I didn't realize that the person was deceased. I immediately made my way back to Furuhashi Hancho and reported to him that there was a dead body up there. I remember using the phrase, "Hancho, denaoshi no kata imasu." He then told me it's prohibited to bring a dead body onto church headquarters grounds and to administer the sasuke to a deceased person. He also said to me that we need to look at their happi coats to identify which grand church and branch church they belong to so we can report this infraction. In Keidai, I learned to read Japanese kanji in regards to grand churches and last names. At that time, it was near midnight, and the family had finally stood up and carried the deceased family member towards the exiting door. Furuhashi Hancho and I bowed to the family as they walked past us to show our respect for their loss. I was so relieved that the family decided to leave because we were about to stop them and escort them off the property. However, we did formally contact with the family's grand church to report this violation. During my Keidai hours is where I learned to grow spiritually. All the long hours standing guard inside the worship hall, watching followers pray to God the Parent. I saw followers pray with true sincerity from their hearts. I had come to learn the regulars who come to pray on a daily basis and always sit at their favorite spot. I was overwhelmed with joy seeing so many followers visit Ojiba during the weekdays and especially on the weekends. The weekends were very busy at Ojiba. Followers would come and pray even throughout the midnight hours. I have seen families in groups and friends having a good time smiling and laughing as they walk throughout Ojiba. I have seen followers bring large bags full of coins and pour those coins into the wooden offering boxes that had metal liners inside that funneled down to the basement. All you hear is a very loud noise of coins crashing down into the offering box. That was very interesting seeing that. I have seen followers cleaning the wooden corridor floors on their hands and knees with white rags that was supplied by Keidai. And as they moved forward, wiping the floors, many would sing out loud the 12 chapters and make their way starting from the South Worship Hall to the Memorial Hall and then to the Founders Hall and then back to the South Worship Hall, and wearing knee pads was highly recommended. I have seen followers use chopsticks and toothpicks to clean out all the dirt and dust in between the wooden floor cracks. During Keidai, once a month, we will travel to Nara train station to deliver a short speech out loud to the public, and of course, I deliver mine in English. From there, we would break up into small groups, engage in door-to-door missionary work. It was quite interesting as people would allow us into their homes and offer us tea and listen to us sprinkle the fragrance of the teachings to them. I once was given a cash donation, and of course, once we returned back to church headquarters, I placed the donation into the offering box and performed a seated service to show my appreciation for this experience. During all the grand services, all three groups, Ichikumi, Nikumi, and Sankumi, are assigned a post during the services. My group had just finished a 24-hour shift, and immediately we had to support the other groups, so we were not allowed to go home. We were all assigned a position, and I once recalled standing guard in the West Worship Hall, up front next to the partition bar, the Kekkai, south side, during the January Spring Grand Service. I was positioned here to stop anyone from entering past the partition bar and into the Shinden and to restrain anyone from making contact with the kanrodai. There were so many followers inside the worship halls. As I was standing guard, literally, there were people sitting beside me. I had no free space and thought to myself, I'm trapped. I would have to jump over the partition bar and sprint as fast as I can to apprehend a person trying to get to the kanrodai. The worship hall was so packed full of followers that it was nearly impossible for me to run across the tatami mat to get to a suspicious person. On that morning, I stood guard at this post for 5 hours straight. I was totally focused on protecting the kanrodai. Keep in mind, the winter weather conditions at Ojiba are freezing, and we Keidai guards cannot wear a jacket, gloves, or beanies. I actually wore 2 pairs of thermals, both top and bottom, with a long-sleeve dress shirt, necktie, and a cardigan sweater. My church headquarters happy coat was made of thick fabric. I also carried in my back pocket a thick knitted grandma-style bachan socks with a white slip-on coverings, and it kept my feet warm while standing on the freezing tatami mats or when on patrol throughout the corridors. It also came in handy when we had to sweep all the snow off of the exterior open hallways during the midnight hours. And speaking of which, I recall at 3 a.m. is when the freezing temperatures really start to kick in. It was very cold. Regardless of the freezing temperatures, the humid hot summer heat, and limited amount of sleep that we had to endure, I always kept a positive attitude and reminded myself that I am here working for God the parent. There was an incident one time where a male in his 30s ran past me and hopped over the partition bar in the South Worship Hall. During the day, I immediately chased after him and caught him without incident. So it turns out that this person of mental illness, he had mental illness and he was a student in the 3-month spiritual development course, Shuyoka. So we had just released him back to his group. There was another incident, which was on a weekend, where a little boy knew that I was watching people in the South Worship Hall. I stood at the entrance. He then started to test me by making a run towards the partition bar, the kekkai, and I literally sprinted full speed towards him, and he would then immediately stop. His mother grabbed him and sat him down as she continued to pray. I then took position in the center of the worship hall, keeping my eye on the little boy. He then again stood up and made a run for it again. This time, he made it all the way up to the partition bar, and at that exact moment, I jumped over the partition bar into the sanctuary side. The little boy ran straight into the partition bar, slamming his forehead, and landed on his back. He started to cry ferociously, and the mother grabbed him by the arm and yanked him away. I remember she then slapped him across the head. The mother looked at me and sincerely apologized verbally and bowed to me. During this incident, 2 other Keidai guards in the South Worship Hall were also running to assist me. But seriously, if this boy had made his way onto the Shinden, the sanctuary, all 3 of us Keidai guards that were watching the South Worship Hall would have been seriously reprimanded. In Keidai vocabulary, a person that hops over the partition bar is referred to as kekkai shinyu. And if that person has intentions to cause harm or damage inside the shinden, this is a serious offense that carries significant consequences. When I became a supervisor, I was assigned for a 6 months to a task called Kaido Steidi, which refers to as the Shinbashida's security detail during the morning and evening service. After the service was complete, the Shinbashida and church headquarters staff, referred to as Hombuin, would exit the South Worship Hall en route to the Foundress and Memorial Hall. I, along with other Keidai Gakuri members, would be waiting in the corridor, and I would start to walk in front of the Shimbashira. And my task was to escort him to the Founders Hall and then to the Memorial Hall. There were Keidai members instructing all the followers who sat in the corridors during the service to sit and pray off to the sides, keeping a clear path for us to travel. I still recall my first experience escorting the Shimbashira and staff members throughout the corridors. It was a morning service on a day of a monthly service. There were so many people sitting down in the corridors, sitting in the formal traditional Japanese way called seiza. When the followers observed me, that was a sign that the Shimbashira was nearby, and they would assume the bowing position to show polite acknowledge and respect. My body posture had to be straight up with my chest out, arms down to my side, fingertips facing downwards. I had to keep my head up and face forward. I was not allowed to smile nor acknowledge anyone that I knew in the crowd. There were a few times when my friends would wave to me and I had to ignore their presence. I must admit that chills ran through my body. I was nervous and scared, and keep in mind that I had to walk at a slow pace by myself with the Shimbashira right behind me. This was one of the highest honorary assignments within the Keidai organization. I felt very honored and proud with a sense of appreciation and gratitude to be chosen. I proceeded with dignity and respect with high regard during the performance of this task. Whenever I was assigned to work the front desk at the Honsho office, I would have to drive out to the Tendi swimming pool and walk up to the very top of the North Tower where we stored a large traditional Japanese drum. I would then open up all the steel shutters. The tower overlooked the Jiba and Tendi city. I would call into the Honsho office with my walkie-talkie to make confirmation that I am ready. I then grabbed a very large 4-foot wooden taiko stick and would glue my eyes onto a red beacon light mounted high above the Honsho office. Once the red light turned off, that was the signal that it's 30 minutes before the morning and evening service. I then would hit the taiko drum as hard as I could and continue with the countdown striking the drum repetitiously for the next 5 minutes. The striking of the drum echoed throughout Tendi City to alert the followers that it's time to make your way to the worship hall for service. I really enjoyed hitting the drum. It was very exciting. I will share a few humorous stories with you, but I guess you would have had to been there to laugh. Once a year, every section or department that is employed with church headquarters receives a bonus directly from the Shimbashira. Back then, the Shimbashira was Nakayama Zenye, the third Shimbashira of Tendikyo. We received the bonus after the morning service had concluded behind the foundress's residence in a large, beautiful conference room with tatami mats. We would sit in order in Japanese seiza style. The Shimbashira with many church headquarters staff members and aides would sit up front. The atmosphere within the room was very calm and quiet. Keep in mind that there were a lot of people in the room as well as outside waiting. The Shimbashira would call out your name. You then would proceed forward and sit seiza style directly in front of him. You then would bow down, staring at the tatami mat, and hold both of your arms out while cupping your hands. The Shimbashira would then place an envelope onto your cupped hands. You then give him a slight bow for a sign of respect and proceed to exit the conference room. Well, in my case, when the Shimashira called my name, he said, Keidai Gakuri no Shimizu Biba. So it sounded like my name was Beaver. So I heard many giggles in the background, and I clearly heard laughter outside. Mind you, there were speakers outside as well. So they heard everything. I personally knew some of the staff members and aides as they were also laughing behind the Shinbashira. The Shinbashira had no idea what was going on, and as he looked up and around at everyone, so one of the aides whispered in his ear and told him what my name was. He then smiled and looked at me, and from there, the Shinbashira had readdressed my name as Keidai Gakari no Shimizu Bobby. I then bowed down, placed my hands out to receive my bonus. The Shinbashira apologized to me with a smile and bowed. I had the biggest smile on my face and bowed back. When I made it outside, many people were laughing, calling me Biba. And this was a joke around church headquarters for a while. Funny thing was, many months after, on a weekday, a regular weekday, late afternoon, Nakayama Zenji-sama, at the time, he was the successor to become the fourth Shinbashira, was walking around the exterior grounds of Ojiba with the presence of Keidai security guards by his side. And he approached the Keidai Honsho office. I was outside speaking to a fellow American from Hawaii that was working for the Tenrikyo Language Institute. And at that moment, suddenly, Nakayama Zenji-sama saw me and walked over to me and started having a conversation with me. He first addressed me as Bobby-san. And of course, I respectfully and formally bowed and acknowledged him. Nakayama Zenji-sama then thanked me for my services and moved on. I was still trying to figure out how did he know me by my name. I walked back inside the Honsho office, and everyone inside was praising me. And still, I was still trying to figure out why Nakayama Zenji-sama knew of my existence. My role as a Keidai Gakari member was one of the most memorable, life-challenging experiences that I will never forget. With deep emotions and inspirations, I learned the true meaning of the teachings of the path through my experience as a Keidai Gakari member. I thank God the Parent for walking me through this experience, providing me with divine guidance and showing me the steps in creating a joyous mind through the realities of life. When I wasn't on duty, I resided at the Honjima Tsumesho dormitory. This is where I noticed my beautiful wife, Masami. Masami was then a student in the 3-month spiritual development course called Shuyoka. She was assigned to do hinokshin in the Kaicho Taku kitchen, the Grand Church head minister's family's kitchen. I was there socializing with other Americans that were students in the Tenrikyo Language Institute, and that's where I saw Masami in the rear of the kitchen taking out the trash, and caught my attention as I thought how beautiful she was. I instantly became attracted to her. And then I spoke to my friend, who was also a Shuka student with Honjima, to get information from her. At that time, they were third month students in Shuka called Sankisei. And they were ready to graduate the 3-month spiritual development course. To my surprise, my friend had informed Masami that I was interested and had introduced us. So moving forward, on October 20th, 1996, we were married at the Honjima Grand Church and resided at the Honjima Tsumesho in Tendi City for a period of 2 years, working as staff members at the Tsumesho until our departure to America in January of 1998. In conclusion, I tried to reflect on myself using my experience living in Ojiba and at my grand church through all the knowledge that I had absorbed to sow the seeds of sincerity and to dedicate myself to the path of this wonderful religion. Thank you very much, and I am grateful for your attention.